My name is Caitlin Thompson, and welcome to my presentation on the trait theory approach to leadership. What is trait theory? Stephen Zacro, who is a leading researcher in the trait theory approach to leadership, defines trait theory as relatively coherent and integrated patterns of personal characteristics reflecting a range of individual differences that foster consistent leadership effectiveness across a variety of group and organizational situations. So these are traits that are natural tendencies that a person has. They can be refined and cultivated over a lifetime. Overall, though, essentially these are traits that a person does or does not have. The trait approach was one of the first leadership theories that was studied, and this continued until about World War II, when the behavioral approach grew in popularity. And the reason for this is because physical, intellectual, and personality traits were all studied among leaders, and no conclusive results were found by researchers. This was due to different results found by each, or no consensus as to what the most important traits were. However, there was a second era of the trait theory where it was looked at again and studied. During this second era, the big five traits were discovered and studied, and these are neuroticism, extroversion, openness, agreeableness, and conscientiousness. Also, during this time, there was a review of over 124 studies. This was published in 1948. And this study looked at multiple studies that range from preschoolers to adults, and it looked at about the span of 50 years of research. And some of the most common traits found among these studies were intelligence, responsibility, integrity, ambition and achievement, dominance, introversion, extroversion, sociability, self-confidence, emotional control, cooperativeness, and diplomacy. This is a chart that explains each of the big five traits individually. The one I would like to point out is the neuroticism trait. While this does sound like a negative trait of being anxious, irritable, temperamental, and moody, what this actually does is leads the leader to inspire change, because due to this unrest, you could say, inside of them, they are always looking to improve things and take things to the next level. So this actually helps promote the company or the organization. Looking at the trait theory in organizational leadership, the core of it all is that the traits will make a leader, not the context. So in theory, a leader who has the traits that they need should be able to function successfully in any organizational model. However, in some of the frames we discussed in the Bolman and Deal text, I was able to see how the trait approach would tie into some of these frames. So in the structural approach, just as the name suggests, there's a lot of structure and people will have their specific roles. So these specific traits should lead to the leader having a specific role of leadership. So you're kind of able to draw a parallel between the specific roles a person holds, and a leader would hold those specific qualities that would lead to a leadership role. They will also hold formal authority and have people working under him or her, which will lead to harmony in the workplace. With the political frame, two common themes are power and competition. So a leader will have somewhat of an edge over other employees that will help them move throughout the company, and that edge is their leadership traits. Also, the human resource frame, while trait theory is approached on the individual and the traits that they possess, and the human resource frame focuses on the relationships with others, I do believe that the trait theory ties in really well to this, because the human resource frame works to place employees in roles based on their strengths. So if they would see someone who has these traits and strengths to make them a leader, they would be placed in a place where they can work to their full potential. Also, in the hiring process, the company should know what kind of person they need and then hire someone who will meet those needs. So if they are looking for a leader and they have an interview and they see that a person appears to possess these traits, hopefully they will be placed in that position based on that. Based off of John Cotter's 8-step model to change, the trait theory will show through each step of this process of change and also in their interaction with others. As I said before, the neuroticism trait often leads to improving the current state of matters and bettering conditions. So this trait will be useful in establishing a sense of urgency for the need to change, acting on the vision because of the desire to see change, and continuing and seeing change through the full process because they will have that unrest until they know things have changed and are working better to its full potential. The extroversion trait, which is marked by being outgoing and talkative, is an asset in all steps as it fosters communication. So this will enable a leader to communicate and make the necessary connections for the change process and also to engage others in the process. The openness trait will make a leader open to input from others and also open to considering that information that they receive. This will be useful in working with a coalition and working on the basis of teamwork and also with hearing from supervisors. This is also useful in taking in feedback along the way to make the most effective change. Agreeableness is the trait that is helpful in working with others. This makes the leader easy to get along with. This is also an asset in each step, as people will be involved in each step, and a leader will be working closely with their followers, their teammates in the coalition, and their supervisors as well. The final trait of the Big Five makes a leader organized, dependable, and responsible. This is useful in providing structure and guidance throughout the change. Even though things are somewhat disorganized and a new order of things are being discovered, this trait can help a leader provide some structure and some discipline throughout the process. In regards to higher education, as I said before, if a person has a trait or the traits that they need to be a leader, this will lead to them effectively leading in any setting. However, I do believe that in higher education, the trait theory could be useful in looking for other leaders. This is one thing I know that is somewhat common among students. I have heard of student leaders going to other students and telling them that they see leadership potential in them. This has also happened from faculty to students, and I'm sure it happens throughout administration as well. So the trait theory can be useful in looking for those traits in other people and encouraging them and guiding them to leadership positions. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and I look forward to any comments or questions you may have.